Hello and welcome to the Warhammer Film Club, where I am joined every episode by a guest to talk about two movies that have some relevance to the history of Warhammer and to our own personal hobby stories. Today, we're going to be talking about the 1997 classic Starship Troopers, and also a film that's perhaps a little bit more controversial and maybe has some problematic elements, but has some interesting things to tell us as well. Carry On Up the Khyber from 1968. I'm joined today by the Olden Demon himself. Oh, no.
Bluffed it. Keep that one in. Keep that one in. That's a good one.
I'm joined today by the Olden Demon himself, Dave Chilvers. Dave,
Hello.
how are you doing?
I'm doing very well. Thank you very much, Jordan.
I almost made it through that intro in one go. I was pleased with myself there.
I think it's very thematic. People corpsing mid considering what we're talking about.
Indeed, yeah. I mean, what is your, just broadly speaking, are you a big film buff? Do you watch a lot of movies?
I do now. When I was young, less so. And then I think when I went to university, I went through a phase of just watching all of the classic films, and Starship Troopers was one of those classic films. I think it was probably Channel 4 that would just do a classic film night every Tuesday or whatever. And I thought, okay, we're just going to go through IMDb, and we're just going to start going through all of these films that I've heard of and never really watched. And because obviously the brief was something that inspired you in your Warhammer journey, but I didn't watch a huge amount of films that were relevant to Warhammer.
Right.
Really, when I was doing Warhammer when I was like 12. And certainly, I don't know, Starship Troopers would not have been. I don't know how old I would have been there, and I don't know what the grade of Starship Troopers is.
I think it was an 18 when it came out.
Yeah, so it might. Yeah, I don't know how old, and it certainly looks like it's an 18 because my goodness,
for certain. But there's a lot in there, right? There's a lot of gruesome.
There's a lot of violence. I mean, spoilers. The guy's brain gets sucked out, and I was looking at it now, and I was like, okay, that's an 18.
Tell you what, when you just did that, I noticed the plant behind your head that has a very arachnid vibe. Are we safe? Are you okay?
Yeah, no, it's actually all the insects have been killed off of that one. It was infested earlier in the year.
Oh.
I've got some stuff, and I managed to completely wipe out the all the fungus gnats that are in it. So we are safe from insects that are potentially going to be floating around.
So you've done your own Klendathu drop then?
Absolutely, yes. We've glassed the planet and sent in the Marines.
Sure. Well, let's talk then about Starship Troopers specifically, and we'll start with the sort of broader history, because this is a film, a satirical science fiction action film based on a novel. So it's the Robert Heinlein original source novel that's very influential, played a huge role in a lot of early science fiction sort of creations and the conception of a lot of stuff. For 40K in particular, things like powered armor, plays, that is hugely influenced by it. Rick Priestley has suggested that Starship Troopers, the novel, was a major influence on him when it came to Space Marines and created 40K. The film, obviously, many years later, not released until 97. This is, it's Paul Verhoeven, so he, the man behind RoboCop and
yes. He's got a very specific style.
Yes, he really does.
And very specific. Well, yes, yeah, very specific style is what I'd say.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, the satire is right on the surface, and he also loves a bit of bombastic action, all of that sort of good stuff.
Yes, it's an interesting one because in some bits it's very kind of modern satire, and in other bits it's very of its time.
Oh yes.
There's full frontal nudity because you just did that in early 90s 80s action films.
I think
boom.
Just on that, and we'll explore some more of this, but I think the egalitarian nature of that scene is actually great. So that the full frontal nudity that's on display in those scenes is all of the Marines, male and female, are together just like in the showers, and there's not erotic at all. There's no sexual anything.
No, there's nothing. Polished. It is just it is actually a scene that works because they're just like these people are just all grouped in together,
Yeah.
and you can imagine it in universe because they don't seem to have any training. There is nothing. There
Oh
is
yeah.
no safety. There is no kind of anything that controls these. They are literally just herded
Yes.
into places, and in it's actually a very good scene for it of a number of reasons because yeah it shows that they're all herded together, and also the things that they're saying as well during that scene
Mm.
are like, hold on, wait, what is that? So they're kind of giving this big chunk of background to the
Sure.
universe,
Yeah.
and you're like, hold on, that some of that stuff doesn't sound right, and you're like, oh, is that because this is actually, it's weird because when I originally saw this film I thought, oh, this is because I was much younger, much more naive, and I watched this film and I was like, this is a pretty bad B movie. I mean
Sure.
it's got lots of action, but it's a bit wooden, it's a bit stilted. There's some weird scenes that just seem like exploitative.
Sure.
I was like, oh, it's just a bit exploitative. It's just a bit bombastic. Some guy gets shot during training. I was like, oh, it's a little bit on the nose. And then watching it now, you're like, oh, there's actually quite a bit going on behind the scenes here
Mm.
that you don't necessarily work. You can kind of see bits of them happening, and then you go back and rewatch it, and you're like, hold on, there's extra bits. So there's the two layers to this film.
Yeah.
We'll probably for we should probably talk about layer one first,
Well,
which is the
yeah.
basics of the movie.
Yes, but let's
And then
remember to
there's
come back to this scene because I think you're
scene.
right. There is some really
Yes.
interesting stuff about citizenship and
Mm.
some of the as much as there is this equality, there's also a lot of problematic elements to its society. But yeah, you're right. The sort of surface level. This is a story about amazingly cool space marines, essentially space warriors, the mobile
Yeah.
infantry, deploying onto planets to have massive battles with giant bug aliens. Right?
Yes.
And they're
And of
very
course,
cool. There's lots of cool explosions. There's cool technology. The bugs are these incredible monsters. Amazing special effects for the time.
oh yeah. I mean,
Really,
those
really
special
fun
effects
stuff
are
in that
very
sense.
good. I mean, some of
Really
them
good.
are a little bit janky, but I mean, some of them I was looking at as like the ship special effects
Oh,
and
the
things like
ships.
that.
We'll talk
I
about
was
those.
like, oh
Yeah.
wow, this is when did this come out again? Yeah, I was like, oh okay, this is looking hotter in certain aspects than some other films, but I think it
Yeah.
was it was fairly big budget as well.
I think relatively speaking, but I also think it was because it was aimed for an older audience,
Mm,
and it was a time when science fiction was in an interesting spot, I think. So I don't,
yes, it hadn't.
if memory serves, it was a big release, but it was also restricted in the nature of it being for it's more extreme. It's not a Jurassic Park that's for everybody.
Yes. Yeah,
So
it's a very interesting one. I think if I recall correctly, and I should have Googled this before coming on here, didn't it have, or isn't it still the holder of the world record for the largest explosion made for a film?
that sounds familiar, actually. Yeah,
Because
this
I
is when they do the
remember
sort of
hearing
new.
that somewhere, and they were saying
Oh,
this is when they glass the planet before they go in
sure.
to
And you
get
see
it.
whole hordes.
There's this big horde, and
Yeah,
there's a big explosion, and it's a very specifically shot explosion. And I was
yeah,
looking at it as I watched it, and I was like, "That's probably the big explosion because
yeah, because it's
it's like boom, boom,
practical
boom,
as
boom,
well.
boom. It just
Yeah,
goes all across this valley,
yeah,
and it looks too good to be a special effect for the time. They must have just gone right. We're going to wire the valley and then just
yeah,
blow it up. Just get lots of explosions. Just go boom,
yeah.
and then stuck the bugs in there later. Yeah, so that there's a lot of like money and special effects that have
Mm,
gone into this, considering that it is such a satire and such a very different kind of sci-fi film to anything you'd see today. I mean, as I said to you, to quote something I'd already used, neither of these films you can make today.
sure.
Um, for different reasons. But
Yes,
yeah,
for very
Starship for
different.
very different reasons. But I can't imagine someone just going, right, we're going to go all practical effects. We're going to break the budget and we're going to go really, really far for this sci-fi film. And it's not really a franchise because it's not really a franchise. I mean,
Mm,
it's made from a book, but it's not Marvel. It's not Star Wars. It's not one of the typical franchises.
yeah,
We're going to write you almost a blank check to do this film. And also on top of that, it's really going to be a kind of kind of satire. I mean, the way I describe it is it's a big budget sci-fi war film with a twist, and the twist is that it's not a war film. You're actually watching state-sponsored propaganda.
Yeah.
And right at the end, you're like, oh, I mean, not right at the end, but through it, you get these little info bits, and they're
Yeah.
saying, "Are you doing? Are you? What is it? Are you?
I
I've wrote
love
it
all
down.
that.
I'm doing my part. Are
Yeah.
you?" And it's stuff like that that just shoots into the film, and then right at the end, it goes full like
Yeah.
propaganda, and you're like, "Oh, okay. I didn't expect." This is why it's like a happy film, but why do I feel so sad and so
Mm.
dirty after watching it? I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, this is a bit. Hold on now. So yeah, it's got those double layers.
Well, that's I mean, obviously, there's lots of visual elements that speak to 40K. You know, whether
Mm.
that's the mobile infantry are obviously the Cadians who came after them. Feels like there was a clear design influence there, and let's draw on some of that stuff. But
Yeah,
then perhaps the more 40K ness of it is that you think you're watching the good guys, and we think, well, they're the humans, so we should be on their side. But there's a huge question mark over actually, are the humans the good guys?
are the
Like,
humans the good guys, and are the humans actually acting of their own free will here?
sure,
Is
yeah.
there any free will? What's happened to society? Something's
Well,
not right with society.
yeah. I mean,
It's
you know that explosion you talked about, the valley when a load of the Air Force drop a load of bombs that destroy an entire valley full of a horde of the arachnid warriors.
yeah.
But the actual way in which the arachnid warriors run along the valley, and you see it later on when they attack the fort, is very similar to how the mobile infantry deploy,
Oh
where they all
yes,
just stream out of their drop pods and are just running down the valley. So they're
yes.
as mindless and as sort of, the same kind of savagery that the bugs are exhibiting is what the mobile infantry exhibit.
Yes, and when I originally watched the film, I was like, "Oh, this is a bit rubbish." All these guys are just like running towards
She's
stuff,
very
and
stupid.
it's
Yeah.
like you don't you. It's like if you think that it's stupid, and then you look back and you're like, "Oh no, we're just bugs. We're
Yeah.
just bugs," and
Yeah.
there's so many allusions to that we are literally bugs
Mm,
in the film, and you can see them on the second watch,
mm,
particularly with Neil Patrick Harris's
of course.
character.
Yeah.
And again, you start watching that film for the first time, especially when he was already famous, because he's probably the one of the most famous characters or one of the most famous actors in it
Nowadays, yeah.
nowadays in the film, with the exception of oh god, the guy from Breaking Bad that I can't remember his name, but I'd know who is in it. I think he's in it. I'm not sure. Anyway, but
I'm
he's one
going
of
to
the most
reveal
famous
my lack
characters.
of Breaking Bad knowledge.
Yes,
I'm not sure who's in it.
I might be miss getting his name, but yeah, you see him like in the start of the film, and you think, oh, it's this film about these three, and then he's never in it again, or is he? Oh,
Yeah, because he's got ESP. He's got some
yes.
like extrasensory
I don't. Yeah,
perception.
is that
Some
in the book? Is the
I do
psychic?
not know. Yeah, I'm not sure. So I've never read the book myself. I've read excerpts of it.
Okay.
And like I'm familiar with some of its core influences, but I've
Mm.
not yet read the book. So I don't know if the sort of psychic powers feature in that.
It would be difficult to pull off what they did in the film in the book, because in the film it's alluded to
Mhm.
cleverly, it's alluded to, and it's only mentioned just a little bit at the end, and then you're like, hold on, wait, but yeah, hold on, but does as have other things been? We should probably talk about the end
Sure.
before we'll get into the whole psychic conspiracy thing that I've got later. We should probably talk more about the film before we
Well,
hit the old.
let's talk about the sort of the broader satirical point then, because the film is set in a world where, in order to be a citizen, you need to have served in the military.
Yeah.
And once you are a citizen, and this kind of comes back to that scene in the showers when they're talking
Yes.
about the reason they've joined up, in order to vote, in order to have children, in order to be a member of the
Uh,
government,
yeah, member of the government. You
you
have
have
to
to
be in the
have
military.
been in the military. So, and there's sort of a historical element that actually the sort of free thinking liberals led this world to the brink of destruction. The strong men of the army stepped in, took over, and have reinstated order. and that is why you live in this martial society now. And then you
Yes.
also get, there's a big thing with one of the main characters' parents, who are clearly sort of liberal elites and quite fancy and have a lot of money. They look down on the military. They don't
Yes.
want him to join. They don't want Rico to join the military at all, put himself at risk. They just want him to live a cushy life like they live.
Yes.
And there's kind of this tension between him wanting to, oh, well, I want to serve, I want to do my part,
Mm.
as the propaganda says. So there's all of these tensions running through, and then obviously we see how this military society actually operates and how they value, or perhaps don't value,
No.
their would-be citizens in
Yes.
the prosecution of this war against the arachnids.
Yes. I mean, you have every bad thing in the military almost. I mean, you've got corporal punishment in the they're like lashing him at one point,
Yeah,
and you're like,
full on.
and then you see the training sequences, and it's like some guy just gets like a throwing knife, and they're doing like throwing knife exercises, and one guy just stands up and goes like, "Well, why do we need to throw a knife?" And he gets a throwing knife stabbed through his hand, and you're
Yes,
like, this seems the most ridiculously overblown thing, but it is the society has just become it's just become extremely violent.
yeah,
Just the human this part of society is just all about violence,
yes,
and that is it. And the end of the argument is violence for the sake of winning the argument, and that's how it works. And that is what seems to have drawn humanity into this war against the arachnids. Just how are we going to defeat these? Some people say that we should learn the arachnids and communicate with them so they stop. No, that we just go in there and kill them with
yeah,
guns and nukes and everything. That's how we do things this way. That's how Uncle Sam did it, and that's how we're going to do it. And
yeah.
yeah, and it's gone very, very violent, and everyone is just caught up in it, or are they caught up?
Hmm.
They are pushed into this wave of violence, and the military just seems completely incompetent. I
Yeah, there's a lot
mean,
of incompetence. I mean,
there's I mean, the training system seems to be random, and one person gets their like leg broken or arm broken.
sure.
Another person gets stabbed in the
On the first
hand.
day.
Yeah, on the first day, it's just like
Yeah.
there's no rhyme or reason to this. It's like, hey, do you want to fight me? Okay, my arm. Ah! It's like, how is that a training? How is that allowed? Because violence is the way that it's
Mm.
allowed, and this is all normalized. So, yeah, it's and then they go down onto the planet, and of course, I don't know how long the training takes, and I
Yeah,
don't know
there's
how
no
long
real
in.
sense of time. I
No,
assume it's longer than a few days that we're shown because they get
yes.
they get to live fire exercises within a couple of montages, basically.
Yes, yeah. I
Um,
mean, it could be within
it
like
could have been that
months.
quick and it wouldn't be out of place, but
No, it wouldn't be at
my
all.
read is it's a bit longer.
It could
Um,
be longer because they learn how to do certain things that
yeah,
are off camera. So
yeah,
yeah, and then they go down to the planet and they're just running around and trying
yeah.
to
They
shoot
literally
these
do just run about.
and it's just such the first time they go onto the planet, they've got like a camera team with them as well that's
Yeah, they just
shooting.
embedded reporters on
Yeah,
the
just
literally that like on
on
the
the
D-Day
invasion.
landings,
Yeah,
essentially.
and
Yeah,
they're actually shooting to camera as well, completely
yeah,
consumed.
dude. Yeah,
And then like 10 of them just try and shoot this one bug, and they just can't, and they're just shooting it, and it just keeps surviving and stabbing them.
yeah,
And you're like, oh, this has gone very badly wrong for humanity.
yeah. We've made a
Um,
mistake.
and then but Rico manages to survive.
Hmm.
Spoiler.
Yeah, but
He kind of, it looks like it's all over for Rico, but is it his teacher,
it's
that
his civics professor.
his
Yeah,
civics professor, who is an
Ratchak,
interesting character?
a fantastic character played by the brilliant
Hmm.
Michael Ironside. Just incredible performer, and all of did so many bit parts through
Yes.
the 80s and 90s.
It's
Absolutely
it's
brilliant.
it's difficult to put your finger on exactly what he's coming from and which kind of direction he's coming from, because he kind of tries to persuade Rico to not join the Marines, or at least seems to kind of
Sure.
put a little seed of doubt into his mind. But then, obviously, you see him and he's on the planet, and he's fully committed at that point. He is like completely committed to the
It's
Marines
interesting.
beforehand. Silent
Yeah, but
conspiracy. It's the silent conspiracy. We'll
well,
come back
but
to that
I don't
later.
know. I mean, I think so. I think he sort of represents the maybe the best possible outcome of this society, right? So he's done his service. We know he's a veteran.
Hmm.
Now he's a civics professor, and he isn't just trying to recruit everybody to go and join the military. He's trying to prepare people for the future. But he literally says that the idea that violence never solves anything is wishful thinking. So he's fully behind
Hmm.
military might and the application of force in order to solve problems, and he totally believes in this society, but he's also not trying to recruit everyone all the time. So
No, he's like
he's kind of
Rico.
presented as a
You got to make your
reasonable
own mind up
voice,
about
right?
this. Yeah, I mean, I
Yeah,
guess, yeah, possibly. Yes, I don't. It's very possible that he's from the first generation of this society that doesn't really have a name. It
I think it's
looks
the
a
Federation.
Is
I
it the
think,
Federation? He might be
yeah,
like a first gen because it's difficult to tell how
yeah, we
long the
don't know, yeah,
Federation has been, and I suspect it's only been there for about 50 or so years. Because
potentially,
if
yeah.
you think about it, if you can only have children if you're a citizen, how did Rico's parents have children?
That's a very good point. Yeah,
And I don't know whether that is a plot
maybe
hole
you
or if
can
that's
buy a license or something of
it's
that
possible that you
nature,
could
but
buy it, or it's possible that the reason why Rico's parents are so against this is they are old enough to be from the generation before the
that's certainly,
Federation,
yeah, that's a good
and
shout.
this thing has just turned up in the space of like 10 or 20 years or so, and then now they've got complete hold of humanity, and there's still little factions
Hmm.
that mysteriously end up exploding from asteroid impact
Yeah, well,
mysteriously.
yeah, I mean that's interesting, isn't it? Because the obviously the idea with any kind of sort of a sort of regular feature of a fascist state and government is that you always need an enemy to fight. That is why the
Mm,
military must be so strong, and that enemy needs to be both strong and weak. It needs to be strong, so we need a strong military, but it also needs to be weak because we can destroy them because we're the best.
yes,
So you kind of
absolutely.
have to get that, and that is what a lot of the propaganda around the arachnids is all about. It is, they're mindless, they're savage, they're stupid, they're just bugs.
Yeah,
But
if
also,
you know where to shoot them, they'll die instantly. But don't shoot their
exactly,
arms. Don't shoot
they're
that. You've got to
stupid,
shoot the brain.
and
That's
yet they're
how.
able to fire asteroids across the galaxy
Yes.
to target and destroy an Earth city. So,
What are
well, I mean, then that becomes a
they?
big
I mean,
question
there's
later
certainly an
on.
asteroid coming across the
An
galaxy.
asteroid does, yes.
Um, as to how it all panned out.
I actually, whilst we're talking about that asteroid, I think, so one of the major strengths in this film, I think there's a lot to like in this film, but we talked a bit about the special effects. The model work for the fleet is
Yes,
incredible,
it looks lovely. I was
absolutely
looking at those
amazing.
ships really look quite. I mean, they're all lit as well, very nicely. They're not
Beautifully.
kind of lit as the modern kind of CGI designs have like internal lights and lots of internal lights and things like that. But I don't know whether those are like actual physical effect
Yeah,
models
physical
that
model
have
work.
just been lit really nicely, so you can see all of the shadows, all the details, and they're moving around. And it look, yeah, I mean that all of the larger fleet actions look absolutely lovely,
Incredible.
especially
Yeah.
at the space station that
Yeah.
they've got.
Yeah,
It's
which the
just
scale of it, I mean, that's very 40K scale because the ships themselves are
big.
massive, but there's a space station that's a ring around the entire moon, and
Yes,
that is very cool.
it's a big thing, and you're like, wow, you've got an awful lot of technology here. Probably should have set up a picket line around Earth to intercept any asteroids, or did
Well, that's the
they?
question, isn't it? Because
Mm,
and there you sort of suggest, well, this asteroid that's been sent by the arachnids through space, just one, and it
yeah.
manages to get to Earth and destroy Buenos Aires. But we've seen in the propaganda that Earth has, like, there are guns on that space station on the moon that
Mm,
didn't destroy the asteroid.
yes.
So,
I mean, and those asteroids, they're not. I mean, it's the size of a ship
mm,
that it kind of the ship it knocks off the comms
it
tower,
does, yeah.
which is the in-universe reason for why that there was no comms sent back to Earth. There's this big asteroid on the way. Better watch out. and then mysteriously it blows up Buenos Aires, which seems to be a kind of untouched haven from this massive Federation thing,
Sure.
which seems to be a very convenient excuse for the Federation to invade the alien planet. Another thing I mentioned this earlier: the Federation's logo is, of course, the winged eagle
Of
that you see
course.
earlier on the film. Of course, it is, and of
Yeah.
course, at that time you would think, okay, that's the eagle of Nazi Germany, but
Yeah.
also now you're like, oh, that's the imperial. Oh, oh,
Sure. Yeah, and there's a lot of costume design that is
mm.
very much going, okay, full on, these guys are inspired by, Nazi Germany,
Yeah, Neil
essentially.
Patrick Harris has got the full
Yeah,
leather trench coat right at the end. He's
absolutely.
in
Yeah.
full get up
German
there.
officer.
Yes. So it's I can see, yeah, you can see what they're aiming for here.
Yeah, and Verhoeven has taught, he's made films that are explicitly dealing with Germany during that time and France and things like that. He's very aware of that history and is exploring that history purposefully here. I think it is a very
Oh yeah.
intentional satire. I mean, you said at the start of the conversation that it's quite on the nose. Nowadays, it's almost not on the nose enough. I think because
Yes.
certain folks may have misinterpreted elements of it, but
Oh
it's
yeah,
very
no, I can
clearly
completely
there.
see. Yeah, I mean, I think when I was in school, people were talking about it, and they were like, "This is," they're just like kids, and they're like, "This is amazing. They're just shooting loads of aliens, and it's
Sure.
great." And oh my god, and you can, yeah, that's the problem with satire of this nature. As soon as it gets too subtle, you miss the point completely,
Yeah.
and then you're like, "Well, it's great because they're shooting things, and you get like to fly a spaceship, and you get to do all this cool stuff. Yeah,
Yeah.
sounds good,
Yeah,
right?
because
Sign me up."
we talked about the value of human life that the Federation seems well, what value do they place? Because the sort of famous and incredible sequence is the Klendathu drop. It's got an incredible score, absolutely amazing score. So this is when all the Marines are getting into their dropships and they're all
Mm,
being deployed onto the planet. This is the home planet of the bugs. It's supposed to be a big heroic. We're just going to go straight there, destroy all the bugs, and leave, and it'll be fine. And then you have again amazing model work with all of the ships as they're deploying the Marines. But there's this light emanations coming from the planet, which we find out later is actually produced by bugs. They can fire some of the massive bugs fire this stuff up, and the ship
yeah.
captains have been told that it's just light, it's just random light, it's flares, it doesn't
Oh,
matter.
yes. I didn't
And then
catch that. Yes, they
actually
were
it
all
starts.
told, oh, it's going to be fine. It's going to be fine.
Yeah, exactly, and it just
And it's
destroys
not
so many
fine.
ships. The whole when we see the fleet later on, the ones that survive, it has devastated the fleet, but it doesn't matter because this whole operation is not actually about preserving human life at all. It's just a
No,
statement, so it
no.
doesn't matter how many people die.
Yeah. Although, weirdly, Federation, I can't remember what we were calling it,
Mhm.
it does have technology, like healing technology for humans,
Amazing
because
to like Bacta tanks from Star Wars, yeah,
Rico gets like put in a big tank and is like, oh, 3 days and you'll be as good as new.
yeah.
And you're like, wow, so it does have this kind of technology. So it's possible that that's a part of why they just think, it'd be fine,
Well, I mean,
because
that certainly seems to be one of
if
the
you
reasons that
survive,
the astonishing violence of the training camp is
mm,
acceptable. Because the
exactly,
guy
because you
who gets
just
his
like,
arm broken, it is healed and it's absolutely fine.
yes,
Obviously, he later dies in a live fire exercise,
yeah,
but
there's
like,
certain things you can't survive,
yeah,
but
you can't heal everything. But yeah, the guy who gets the sword, the knife through his hand, that's fully healed and he's fine. So maybe that the amazing power of healing technology has also lowered pain and injury are less significant because of that.
yes, well, and pain's still there, but in terms of well, certain injury is because there's lots of people who have like missing limbs.
Yes, there are. Yeah.
I mean, that's when you start to see like in the recruitment office, and the guy goes, "This the Marines made me the man I am today," and you see he's got like two missing legs and a missing arm,
Yes.
and even the teacher has like a robot hand as
Yeah.
well. So there's obviously some ways of like replacing parts, but obviously not vat grown again, he might again that there might be now. He as why that teacher might be just the first generation who didn't get a vat grown replacement arm. He got a robot
Could well
arm,
be, yeah.
and the later generations do get like full replacement limbs because the technology has progressed since then.
Hmm.
It's possible that that's happened. I mean, we don't see anyone with a replacement limb, but certainly we do see
Certainly,
people who get like chunks of their body replaced.
yeah.
Because Rico gets like a stab through like the thorax or stomach or somewhere or
I think it's
other.
through his thigh, and it must
Oh
go through his
yes,
bone because
yeah, it runs through
the
the leg, I
huge
think.
spike goes through his leg.
Yes, yeah, and they're fine, and yeah, no, later, Carmen. I missed this in this is actually a plot hole in the film, but when Carmen and what's his name, the other flight pilot crash on the planet, Carmen gets stabbed through the leg
Right.
and immobilized, and next scene she's walking fine,
She is
and
fine
that
at the end of the movie.
she's like, yeah, this is fine. Well, thank we made it, everyone.
Yeah.
Good job. But of course, you are then you're thinking, okay, no, I am watching full on propaganda here, where it's like they've just
Yeah.
edited all the bad stuff out, and now they've forgotten about the fact that the love of their lives have just died in this
Yeah, they're
horrendous
very gung
incident.
ho still at the end. They're very
Yeah, and
happy
you're
to be
like,
there.
it's very jarring because in a normal film, they'd be like, oh my God, I need to go through therapy. I've seen this horrible, horrible, horrible stuff.
Yeah.
And then at the end of this film, they're like, yeah, we're all friends. Good job, everybody.
Yeah.
Because you are watching I suspect you are deliberately watching like a propaganda broadcast at that point that
Yeah,
has been
definitely.
heavily edited to make it all look like the humans won. And that's the best thing because now we've got the brain bug.
Yeah, because the Klendathu drop. I mean, actually, the sacrifice of millions of lives, or however many people die in that Klendathu drop at the sort of midpoint in the movie. The
Yeah.
first action is astonishing number of people,
Oh yeah.
and the Sky Marshal has to quit, and a new Sky Marshal is sort of brought in,
Yes.
and
So
they're
that
still going to continue the war, but they're going to start from the outer edges
yeah.
of the arachnid space, and then make their way into
Yes. Yeah, and make your way
Klendathu.
into it. And so it hasn't completely got to the state where, the propaganda is covering up these mistakes. It's recognizing them and it's firing the people who made them. So there is someone probably at the top of this pyramid of command, because it's all a psychic conspiracy. Probably them who are controlling the strings, and then they're delegating to these sub-marshals who are obviously failing, and then they're getting replaced.
Yeah.
So yeah, that bit in the middle is just absolutely smashes the fleet and completely destroys it, and then within 3 days Rico's back and
Yeah, just
fine.
back at it. Yeah.
Everyone's fine. There's no is it Kitten who dies in the Klandathu drop? I think
Quite a few members of
quite
the
a few members of
squad who
the
are
squad do,
trained with
yes.
them die, except for
And
our sort of core three.
except for the core group, yes. And then they go back for another go.
Yeah.
In was it Planet? Oh, what's it called?
Planet P.
P.
They're deployed onto Planet P at one point,
Yes.
which is where they're. I think that the general has got into trouble. It's the first
Yes, they're following a distress
confirmation that
call.
there is a brain bug
Yes,
is on
and
that
then
planet,
they
and then there's things go disastrously wrong, and it's unfortunate because they have to redeploy quickly and don't get very much time to spend with their space violin that I
yes,
absolutely
the
loved.
space violin. That's another unusual thing.
So
That
specific.
it's a very specific thing that they get like, oh, but don't worry, but next time we're going to go, it'll be fine because we've got some toys for you. And one of the toys just happens to be this futuristic neon violin
Yeah.
that one of the characters was shown to, enjoy the violin just in another thing. And it's like, we've got this violin. How did that? And you're like, of course it happens because you're watching propaganda. You're the people
Sure,
who
yeah.
win get the things that they like. And you're like,
Yeah.
oh, that's a very oddly specific thing to put in a drop and send over through a wormhole to a universe to send to this specific unit. And you're like, we got a way. It's going to be fine now. Playing
The
a space violin.
the brain bug that they actually do go and find is absolutely grotesque.
Yes.
It's
Yes, it
so
is. It
uncomfortable
is
to look
a
at. It's very
very
brilliant design.
yeah, there's yeah, certainly the I don't know what you'd call it, the mouth that the this kind of stabby thing comes out
Yeah,
of.
the
It's just
straw.
like full on physical effects. They must have just created all this slop and just slop more slop, just slop more of this stuff over it, and it's got loads of eyes, and it's just a really, it's it's a even now the physical effects do look superior to the kind of CGI stuff
Yeah,
even now. I mean, that was certainly the case in the 90s, certainly the case in the early
yeah,
noughties. But even now, there's like physical effects that do look just so much better than
yeah.
CGI'd kind of uncanny valley. It's very close to being gone, but it's not fully gone yet. And that's one of those effects where if that had been some kind of weird CGI creature for the time, that would have ruined the whole thing
And
because
they
it
do
would have.
use CG for like the full shots, but I think
Mm.
because it's all referencing the physical, real thing that they've built,
Because when you
and there's a
zoom
really
in,
nice they like Jurassic Park did. You find the perfect blend of
yes,
using the practicals as often as possible, and
and
then
if you
using
have to
the
zoom
CG
in to a
for
certain
yeah.
point, you have to get a
And
physical thing
that
because it
works
doesn't.
really well because it helps sell the illusion, like the entire illusion. Sure, as you know, there are a couple of shots. There's plenty of shots that haven't aged that great, but there's
Mm.
also a lot of shots that are still pretty good, and you'd be very happy to see in a new movie coming out today, even.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, a lot of good stuff there. I think it's when there's too many, I think practical effects at the time couldn't do things like jet streams and like
Sure,
burn when ships are flying and you can see like this trail of
like fluid dynamics
yeah,
and stuff
fluid
like
like
that. Yeah,
explosions or fire, shapes of fire. That isn't great for the time.
yeah.
And that would be absolutely like you'd need a kind of really cutting edge kind of deal to get that looking right.
Speaking of
Um,
explosions and fluid dynamics, there is just a broader point, I suppose, again about the military hierarchy of this world is how quickly our main characters are promoted very
Promoted
high.
and yes,
So
they
the captain of the ship is killed in one of the actions, and then Denise Richards' character then becomes captain by the end of the movie, and
oh
she's only
yeah.
just out of flight school, like
I
however long earlier, a month or a couple of months.
Yes, I mean I was trying to note down every rank that Rico got in the movie. I literally wrote it down. I think he's like literally right at the end of the movie, he becomes like squad leader, then he's sergeant, then he's corporal. No, wait, he's corporal, then sergeant. And yeah, they are just going up and up and up.
Yeah.
And as another point in that, that's probably because there is such a high death toll. And also as another
Yes.
point of that, when Rico looks at the new generation, they're all children. There's
Yeah.
like they've clearly got children and they've placed like the military
Yeah.
units and they're like 14 and just
Which
like
makes you wonder
we've
what the
got guns.
population is like.
Exactly. Well,
Yeah.
it's an unusual one considering that in order to have, yeah, well, it's probably because in order to um, have children, you have to be in the military. The military has a very low survival rate.
Yeah.
We've suddenly skewed the balance suddenly, and now we've got nothing. There's very little left, and we might have miscalculated on that bit. But yeah, there's quite a lot going on there where you just go up, and that works in the concept that this is basically a propaganda piece.
Yeah.
It's like, look, you get a violin and you get to be sergeant in the space of two battles.
Yeah.
And I mean, they're very violent battles. No,
Yes.
there's two or three battles, isn't it? Because there's the
That we
compound
see. I
one.
think there must be engagements that we don't see because they're talked about. They talk about fighting at the outer rim, and they talk about the pleasure planet gets destroyed,
Mm.
and that's where Radchek's Roughnecks had fought and stuff like that.
Ah, yeah,
Zagama
yeah. So
Beach, I
there's
think it's
more.
called.
Yes, there's
Yeah.
there's obviously more. But yes, it does seem like he doesn't seem to. None of them seem to actually age or anything like that. They just go straight up the ranks
Yeah.
into these positions because the positions need to be filled because there needs to be more humans because they're just burning through their population.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, it just goes all the way through. And then by the end of the film, they've got the humanity has control of is is there only one brain bug, or is there multiple brain
I mean, that's a
bugs?
quite good question. My assumption, and this is pure assumption, has always been that there's more than one, and that they are
Hmm.
because it's such a large population of
Yeah, if it,
arachnids, and they're on different
yes,
planets and all sorts.
yeah, it's got to be different for planet. So it might be that there is one per planet, maybe.
Yeah,
And
or
the
yeah,
reason why it was all suddenly rush job to get this one is that they had a location of it, and
yes, that's what
they
I think.
managed to get to the bug suddenly because it was on one of the outskirt planets, and they
Yeah,
realized, if every planet has one, we need to go to one of the smaller planets to grab their brain bug, and then we could grab and you reverse everything, engineer everything from there.
yeah.
So yes, they've grabbed one of the brain bugs. Um, in one of the most, dodgy, well, not dodgy, but foreboding scenes when Neil Patrick Harris is going up to it and he puts his little hand on it, I think, and he goes, "It feels afraid," and
Hmm.
everyone cheers,
Yeah.
and then the movie ends.
Yeah.
You're
So,
like,
speaking then of Neil Patrick Harris, and I get the sense that you've been subtly trying to influence our minds throughout the course of this conversation,
psychic
Dave. So
conspiracy.
tell us your psychic conspiracy.
So yes, so there's bits missing from the film, and such as the actual hierarchy of the Federation and things like this. And one of the first scenes in the film is Neil Patrick Harris doing this little psychic test, and it's made clear that every member has to do a psychic test to see if they're psychic.
Mhm.
And I don't know whether that's in the book or not, but it's a very specific scene, and it's also shown that Neil Patrick Harris, I can't remember his name. I'm calling him by his NPH name, but I don't know what his name is in the film. Um, he can control, um, he can animals like non-sentient life. I think he puts it. He
Mm.
not sentient because, but like animal life.
Yeah.
He's like I think he's got like a weasel,
Yeah.
and he's like, oh yeah, I can tell this weasel what to do, and the weasel just runs off. And it was like, oh, I put a thing in its brain to tell it that there was an insect crawling up his mum's leg, and of course the weasel runs off to go and eat the insect, and it's like, yeah, I'm gonna because I've got these psychic powers, which are rare. They seem quite rare, it
Yeah.
seems. Because I've got these psychic powers, I'm going to go off to join the psychic corps of the army. And you think at the start of the film, okay, that you've got these three characters, and we're going to see their journey, and then you almost never you see him for two other scenes for the
Mm.
rest of the film. The final one is when he captures the brain bug, but then in the middle of the film, he's like progressed quite high. He's on like one of the propaganda broadcasts, and he's showing people how to shoot at bugs.
Yeah.
And he's like, wow. And they're all like, wow, he's really jumped up in life. He's like really high up now. He's doing the broadcasts for people. But obviously, I think it's implied at the start of the scene, in the start of the film, that these psychic powers can be used to trigger humans
Mm.
to do actions as well. And Rico's like, no one seems to question that.
Yeah, he's fine. He's like,
Because,
You don't do that on me, do you?" And Neil Patrick
yeah,
Harris is like, "No, not
no,
yet.
no,
Can't do
what?
humans
Can't
yet."
do humans yet, which is like,
And it's kind of a joke.
are
But
you,
he's
are
very
you
serious when
gay?
he says it.
Yeah, it's like, no, I can't do humans yet. No, 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 no. I wouldn't do that to you yet. And then, of course, obviously he's going off to train, presumably with this kind of psychic core of humans who have psychic abilities. And he does learn how to control
Mm.
humans. And ergo, there is a large group of humans who currently can control humans. And it is known in human society that there is this group of psychic people who just control human emotions or human behavior, just by suggesting things to them. And suddenly the entire film, and you're like, so did Rico actually join the Marines of his own? Did all of these characters join the
And Diz as
Marines?
well, yeah.
Diz is the suspect one,
Mm.
because Diz is the kind of love interest of the film. And I think she's going off to play in like sports.
Yeah, because
Why was
it's a
she going?
surprise when she joins the military,
Mm.
and then the suggestion is that she joined for Rico.
Yes, there's the
But
suggestion
you
that she
could
joined for
argue,
Rico,
yeah,
but also you could argue someone just popped
Yeah,
some
because it's
messages in
explicitly
there.
stated later on, of course, that essentially the same way he made the ferret or the weasel see a grub.
Yes,
That is exactly how he helps Rico find Denise Richards'
yes,
character and the brain bug, and then
yes,
Zim, the training sergeant later on, also is finds the brain bug. So is it that throughout all of these events, Neil Patrick Harris's character has been subtly guiding Rico and
yes.
others to do certain things?
It's well, if you assume that there is a cabal of people who are
Mm,
doing this, I suspect, again putting the conspiracy hat on, which I like to do from time to time, Neil, as a psychic person, you have to know who you're controlling,
mm,
and that's why, because Neil Patrick Harris knows Rico, he knows Rico's there, and he can see things through Rico, and it's like that's why he picks Rico, because Neil Patrick Harris knows Rico's character, and it's like, right, this guy's in this location. We're just going to tweak him to
mm.
come up there, and presumably there are other psychic people, psychic individuals who maybe got the drill sergeant, because that drill sergeant just starts off as a sergeant and then demotes himself to like
Yeah.
private to join the army. And you're like, is that sure? That's
Because
your end?
he wants to
He
do
really
his
wants
part
to
as well,
do his
right?
part, but isn't he doing his part by
Yeah.
being a drill sergeant? Wouldn't you rather have a drill sergeant than a private? But again, because they're down to the point where they're
The
now
zealots, essentially,
conscripting
aren't they?
children and
Yeah.
things like that. So yes, there's a large part of this where you look back at it and think there's obviously some kind of higher ups that have psychic powers that can now influence humans
Mm,
to do whatever they want. And now they've got the power, now they've got the brain bug, because they can just influence humans, but the humans are still kind of operating, but the brain bug can just get a whole herd of them to just chuck themselves at
sure.
an enemy. And they're like, oh, now the psychic people have access to the brain bugs and they're experimenting on them. Presumably, that's because they're going to use whatever they learn from the brain bugs to control humans
I
more.
think there's definitely a case to be made there. I think that's a good shout.
Mm.
Yeah, I never really thought about the sort of psychic cabal idea before, but it does make a lot of sense. I think
Yes.
also, I mean, there's a read that whether or not that's true, that just this society has bred people into this fervor of,
Yes. I mean,
we go and fight battles and are in the
tier.
military because that's great.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, tier one, it is military propaganda. It is
Yeah.
like military propaganda 101. This is basics. We're just going to tell people what to do. That we're going to give them a reason, i.e., the asteroids that explode cities, and we're going to inflame them into doing this.
Mm.
And just a little bit below that, there's like another tier that's also inflecting society that isn't 20th century propaganda. It's something else, this psychic tier. And now, we're becoming insects,
Yeah.
basically. We are
Yeah,
now
they want
becoming the
to,
hive mind
yeah.
that we've been used to control. We are now chasing the insects
It
that
is a
Neil
good
Patrick Harris was doing at the
theory.
start. Yeah,
It's
I mean, it's one of those little
It's nice, and
subplots.
because there's a lot of talk earlier on. I mean, certain scientists and people talk about how the bugs, in one sense, are almost the perfect organism, the perfect
Mm,
society, and
yeah,
that is essentially what the Federation wants. It wants
yeah,
worker bugs and like fighter bugs, warrior bugs. It
yeah,
wants everyone to have a very specific role and to all be working for whether it's the brain bugs or whatever's in power
yes.
as a seamless, frictionless society
Mm.
that is, very aggressive.
I
So
yeah, it's almost like
maybe they
it
do
looks at the
literally want
bugs and
that.
they're like, yeah, this is what we want.
Yeah.
We want to be part of like a big colony and we're going to be the queen bees and you're going to be the worker bees.
Mm.
Yeah.
What do you think about sort of more broadly just the film, I suppose, and the book actually? What do you think about its sort of 40K connection? Do you think so? This came out in '97,
It
so
came,
obviously
yeah,
40K was already
97.
very well established.
So
But
it's well established at that point. I looked this up. So the second edition Guard Codex came out in 1995,
mm,
by which time all of the different Guard um, regiments were already established, and then later got completely thrown in the bin, so they could just
sure,
focus on Cadians. And
yeah,
then third edition Imperial Guard Codex comes out, and it's 2001, 2002, I think. So it's kind of in that middle period there. And yeah, and then I mean, to be honest with you, it's probably more likely going to be influenced by the book than the film. I mean, the film certainly gave people a idea of sci-fi infantry and how they fight.
I think that's the thing, isn't it?
It's one of the key ones. I think it's this and Aliens, which is
Yeah.
it has the
It's just a
the
point, a
two.
visual point of
Yeah,
reference that I
you
think
do need. Yeah.
it was in the mix when you were in the store in the late 90s and you were fighting Imperial Guard and you were Tyranids.
Yes.
You know, that this is what you were picturing, I think. I mean, Jervis Johnson even cites it at one point in A White Dwarf and says it's like Starship Troopers, you know.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
it's definitely sort of become a part of the conversation, even
Yeah,
if there's not as
absolutely.
many direct
Yeah,
influences from the
I
film.
think the film is just an ancillary part of this. I think you could probably point it back to the Colonial Marines in Aliens,
Sure, yeah, yeah.
because I mean, Aliens
Which
has a
this film
massive
is referencing
inspiration.
as well.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, and that has like I mean, Space Crusade, Space Hulk, the
Yes.
all of the pantheon of humans going onto a spaceship to shoot aliens.
Yeah.
That
I do think the
that
Tyranid, like the continued evolution of the Tyranids, probably owes something to this kind of
Yes,
conception of the
that's probably what I'd be
arachnids.
pointing to more than
Yeah.
directly I mean, because obviously, again, Tyranids were a thing
They
up
were,
to
and like you say,
um
aliens and the way the aliens work is very relevant. But because this is a full army of bugs,
yes.
there's
Oh
definitely
yeah, I mean,
ideas I think that were
people need visual interest to go, yeah,
yeah.
that is that. And it's I think when it comes to like sci-fi fandoms and kind of um uh various different IPs that have meshed together and interspersed and and created this the sci-fi universe, things like the Starcraft, Starship Troopers, Aliens. It it's like the whole thing has come together, and there's no one part of it that is the catalyst or one part of it that's the start, and it's just everything has worked together
Mm,
because realistically a lot of these people are working together. The artists are all taking inspiration. They're freelance artists. They will just go and work for other agencies, and they'll take their ideas and they'll put those ideas in another
mm,
film, and it'll all just spiral on out there, and it will continue being a thing and a thing and a thing, and it inevitably starts to look like the same thing if you're standing standing at the other side of the room and you're looking at a wall, and one part is Aliens, one part Starship Troopers, one part's the Tyranid Codex, one part's
mm.
Starcraft. It starts to merge in
Yeah.
because at the core of it, it's a bunch of American and British artists and writers who've started to feed off themselves. And in order to get original stuff, what you actually have to do is you have to go to literally a different country and find a different country's take on
It's
sci-fi.
interesting.
You have to go, if that's
I
why.
think there's still room for pure, like true innovation. I think there's
Yes,
definitely
yeah,
conversations and dialogues between all these different works and the influence and you know people doing different variations on a theme.
yes.
Yeah, I think there's still the potential for new creative voices to emerge and to kind of go, okay, actually, I'm purposefully not citing any of that stuff, not
Yes.
being informed with that, and I'm going to try and explore something
I
else.
mean, when you start talking about like the sci-fi history of Japan, it's taken a very different turn
Oh, sure, yeah, yeah,
to the kind of because it's a different culture. It's different
sure.
artists who are also doing the same thing. They
Mm,
are making their art in with relation to all the things that happened in Japan. You've got Godzilla, you've got the
mm,
mechu kaiju monsters and things like that. They all kind of spiral out into their own little thing with themes of like nuclear themes and even Attack on
sure.
Titan, things like that. You can see how that's a style that's just been created in Japan. And meanwhile, over here, we've got these sci-fi universes that have a little touch of kind of the old
Mm,
imperial eagle of fascism because British and American, the
yes, they're
history of
relevant.
that and the history of World War II, and that is our history. And they have,
Yeah,
and
there's definitely
that's where they've been
elements of
pushed
it.
into.
Yeah.
And that's what the zeitgeist of our society has. It understands these
Mm,
concepts much more than, for instance, we would necessarily have understood a Godzilla monster in, say, like the 50s.
Sure.
That's very much a thing of the Japanese nuclear
Because, like
kind
you
of
say, it's
ascendancy.
exploring
Yeah,
specific reference points
I
and
mean,
history
that's
and
the thing about all
cultural.
sci-fi. It's
Yeah.
exploring a
Yeah.
theme. This is
Yeah.
the theme, and I'm going to explore it. And the
Yeah.
theme that I have is my lived experience on and the lived experience of the people around me. Because
Yeah.
write what you know.
One, it's not quite that point, but just in terms of the sort of dialogue and the relationship, just looking at the book of Starship Troopers, I was, and I'm sure people who are more familiar with all of these works have drawn this stuff out, but I was quite struck by how in Horus Rising, Dan Abnett has the Astartes fighting against something called the Mega Arachnids or Mega Arachnids.
I didn't
And
catch
in
that.
that, instantly there's a certain feel there. But in the book of Starship Troopers, the arachnids are not quite like they're presented in the film. So, I mean, they're described as a madman's conception of a giant intelligent spider, which isn't that far from the movie, but they actually use technology. They have hands. So there's
I
arachnid warriors who have like human-esque torsos and guns and stuff like that. And the
Yes.
mega arachnids, and they're called pseudo arachnids, by the way, in the Starship Troopers book, the mega arachnids of Horus Rising they're nigh on unkillable. There's loads of them. They use some kind of like maybe organic or mechanic technology, as well as the fact that they are killer bugs. It really does make me think that Abnett was maybe speaking to Starship Troopers a fair bit in
It
in
could
that. I don't
be.
know if they predate the Horus Rising book, but
Well, yeah, it's gonna the film is going to predate Horus Rising. Yes, Horus Rising
yeah,
was
I think the film kind of takes the arachnids in such a different way that I think Abnett, whether or not I don't know if the mega arachnids feature in earlier iterations of the Horus Heresy story, or if Abnett
no.
created those
It
for
was
Horus
when
Rising.
that Horus Rising was 2004, I want to
Something
think.
around mid 2000s, yeah.
Uh, Hold on.
But in
Horus
any case,
Rising.
so all I mean is, I don't know if he was the one who said, "Oh, it was the mega arachnids who they were fighting,"
Mm,
or the mecha arachnids. But either way, I think the mecha arachnids are similar to the pseudo arachnids of Heinlein Starship Troopers.
yes, I mean I've never read the book of Starship Troopers, but from what you've said there, if I was for instance, film director, it would be much, much harder to do the practical effects for human
Yeah,
and alien hybrid
yeah, I think so.
arachnids
Yeah,
than it would be to do the effects for what you've got in Starship Troopers, the film. I
yeah,
think
yeah.
you don't
Good
need to
good
go
luck to
that
Henry
far.
Cavill and the Amazon team if they decide to do the Horus Heresy.
Yes, I mean, good luck to them if that's a topic for another day. I'd love to come back and break down every single episode of that with you at some point because oh my goodness, I've published a video on that one and that's a hard job. That's gonna be a very, very
I
hard
think it's
job.
going to be a tough one. Yeah.
If
Any
that's the way
final
they're
before
gonna
we
go.
move on, Dave, to our next feature? Are there any final thoughts on Starship Troopers?
I'm just checking my notes here. I think we've pretty much covered everything. Yeah,
Hmm.
pretty much covered everything. I mean, literally the only thing is the female leads and how everyone, and I think I remember this broadly speaking from a Red Letter Media review of it, but everyone, or at least Rico and Carmen, both lose their soulmate effectively. They
Right.
don't know it and they don't realize it, but they end up the film losing the soulmate that they probably should have got with. In any other film, they would have got with that person,
Sure.
and it would have been either they'd have got with that person or they would have ended up romantically entangled with each other. But in this film, no.
Hmm.
No, no, no. You're a part of the big honeybee
Married to the core.
thing now. Yeah, exactly. You don't have a partner or a
Hmm.
soulmate or any kind of romantic endowment at the end. You're just a part of the army.
Yeah.
That's it, and that's how it ends now, and that's how they seem to want it, unless they
Yeah.
don't. But I mean, they probably do.
Sure. Yeah.
Like it's
Yeah.
heresy.
Yeah. I mean, and to your point at the start of the conversation, I think it's a fantastic ending. So they get the brain bug, but they've had devastating losses throughout the course of the movie. But the way the film ends, with this very clear to the camera propaganda piece
Mm.
of, we have the technology, they we're going to fight and we're going to win. Basically, is how
Yes.
it ends.
And are they?
Yeah, exactly.
Because of
But based on
course,
everything we've seen so far, I wouldn't have thought so. They've
yeah, and
lost
of course,
pretty much every fight except one.
and that's the thing you said about these kind of authoritarian dictatorships. You need an
Sure.
enemy. You
Yeah.
always need an enemy. Even if it doesn't exist, you'll create an enemy. There'll
Yeah.
be something. I don't know. Are they on Clandathu? They know they're on Planet P at the
No,
end.
it's much further out, I
So they've
think.
got they've
Yeah.
got potentially an endless war that
Which I
they can
think is,
fight in
yeah,
front of them.
absolutely. Absolutely.
That they're
Because
all
they
going
talk
up
about
to.
the arachnid quarantine zone, and it sounds massive. So it's not even like Clendathu is. It feels like there's many planets before
Yes,
you're going to succeed on Clendathu. The
and
only
you
thing
can.
I dislike, and this is mild and probably unfair, the only thing I dislike about that end sequence is that the technology has been upgraded in the propaganda. They're like, look, we've got new guns, we've got new ships, and none of
Yes.
the designs are as cool as the ones we had in the actual movie because they're all rounded edges and they're sleek and sort of new and fancy. The brutal, hard edged ships that we'd seen earlier in the movie, they just appeal to me more.
Yes, I mean, yeah, those guns that everyone's running around with, and they've got for like no one does anyone reload in the entire film.
I
They
think
just they
they've
just keep
definitely run out
firing
of ammo,
guns.
but
They
yeah, I
run out
can't
of ammo,
remember. Yeah.
and I think at one point, no, I don't know. I don't know if anyone ever reloads. They just run around and they fire, probably because they haven't been trained how to do that. Because
No one knows how to reload
no
a
one
gun.
knows. You just like run at them with the gun and fire the gun, and then you win, right? And they're like, and if that fails, get out the violin.
Yeah. Speaking then of a perhaps a lack of training or competence, let's
Yes,
let's chat about our second film. So this is this is Carry On Up the Khyber. So this is a
yes.
1968 comedy film from the
Mm.
very popular at the time series of Carry On movies, which were quite popular in Britain. This was the 16th movie in the franchise at this point, which is astonishing to me.
Yes.
And before we get into it,
Oh
we are
yeah.
just going to have a little bit of
Content warning.
content warning. Yeah. Just because this film is very obviously filmed at a time. I mean, you could argue that it was problematic at the time, but that was the kind of jokes that people were telling. But there are a lot of jokes that are built on racial stereotypes. There's a lot of like poor impressions. There is brown face makeup and things like that. So there's a lot of stuff that would make this a very hard film to recommend
Yeah,
these
I mean,
days,
it
and
says
rightly so.
something. 2 points on that. It says something of the both films that we watched. One of them involves a huge amount of like violent, bloody aftermath of battles where people have been like ripped open by bugs, and one of them has a scene where someone's brain gets sucked out of their head, and yet this is the film that you need to warn people about.
Sure.
Carry On the Khyber is the one that you need to put a content warning on. And
Yeah.
also, Carry On the Khyber is a film about the British colonialism of India, and that's the third least problematic part of this film.
Sure.
And you're like that. I mean, if you made a film about the British colonialism of India these days and the characters were all happy and things like that, most people these days would say that, okay, hold on, that's a bit dodgy. But in this film, it goes so far beyond that.
It
The
does.
problems go, whoa. And by the time that you're looking at the actual, the historical context of the film, your expectations have been blown away.
Mm.
It's like, every like you see certain things and it's like, oh, okay, that's a bit too much. Yes, so obviously Carrying Up the Khyber, set in 1895 during the British colonialism of India, where the Indians are launching an uprising to rid themselves of their British oppressors.
Mhm.
And it's a carry-on film. So we have to probably explain what carry-on films are and their
Please do.
zeitgeist.
Yeah.
Because I can imagine, obviously carry-on films are part of the British comedy pantheon.
Mhm.
It was a 30 film series, 30 plus film series. Take that, Marvel. 30 plus films. It went from 1958 to it stopped in the 70s, and then then they did like a reboot of it
Yeah, they
in like
tried a
the
new one,
early
didn't they?
90s as well. So that's why, I mean, I think they only had about two films or so in the 90s with a different cast,
Hmm.
because the original cast, bless them, had all passed on. This was the hard drinking, hard living lifestyle of the 50s and 60s.
Sure.
Um, and it's because to try and explain this, because I know a lot of my audience is not English, not
Right.
British, not from the UK, and
I
I
think a
do
lot of
wonder
people
how
will be lucky enough to
Americans,
have never encountered a carry-on
yeah,
film.
I do wonder how a lot of the Americans of today's audience would look at these films and think, what these British people are insane. What on
it is a
earth?
very of its time kind of
Yes.
comedy routine. It's bawdy humor, it's silly
Seaside
humor.
comedy,
You
yes.
know,
It's
there's
the
a
kind
lot
of
of slapstick
slapstick
and there's a lot of puns. So this, I mean, and
puns,
I think this is, and we can get into sort of
sight
why
gags.
you wanted
Yes.
to explore the film. But like there are things I think that are relevant to early Warhammer and
Oh
the
yeah,
way in which it was
absolutely. I mean, to talk
certainly when it
about
comes to those kind of puns and those kind of silly jokes.
yeah, we'll I think we'll do the relevance to war. Well, we'll do it now. Basically, this franchise went on for 30 years continuously between like the late 50s, mid 70s ish, and at certain points they were doing like three films a year, and that's a lot of content for that time to just chuck out. And these were low, I say low budget. They look low budget now, but realistically, in the context of the British film industry at that time, they probably must have been chucking a decent amount of cash at it,
I
even
think the
though it
actors
looks
might
so
have been
bad.
getting a fair whack, but like for
Yes.
the time,
Yeah, I mean, for if you've got Sid James, I don't know how much he was on,
yeah.
but he was in almost, well, I don't know how many films he was in, but he's a very famous actor to be doing it. And Kenneth Williams, again, just him for the Carry On films. A lot of them are just people oh, it's that person from the Carry On film. So they
Mm.
must have got a decent chunk of change until I don't know why I presumably standards in like the 70s eventually changed and the kind of
Yeah, I mean, as I
um
understand it, they just stopped being as popular. So
yes,
they
it's a
whether or not that's because the jokes got too derivative and too repetitive, or
yes
because culture changed and shifted and people just weren't
yes,
enjoying it as much.
it's a very every film has, broadly speaking, the same kind of theme, or at least every film that has Sid James on, because he's your main character. Sid James is Sidney Rough Diamond, a British overseer of the
Hmm.
Indian territories, and everything is being sent up, including everything is being sent up. We should probably talk about the film before we start disassembling it
Go on
as
then,
well.
yeah.
So we'll probably do that. So he's the overseer of the I see the Third Foot and Mouth Brigade, which
Yes,
is
the
a curious. It's a British regiment, or is it? Because they're all wearing kilts,
yeah,
so it might be a Scottish regiment, but none of them have a Scottish accent. No one is even attempting a Scottish accent
no,
here. You've got like the drill marshal is a very clearly British accent, and he's doing the accent of like a
would be a Sandringham
standard.
kind of
Yeah, it's the
old
kind
school.
of blue blood style
Yes,
officer in the British military at that time. So they're not Scottish. The whole reason is they wear kilts,
yeah.
which is a key part of the theme of the movie, because in the movie's canon, the reason why the Foot and Mouth Brigade are so feared is because they don't wear underwear under their kilts.
Mm.
Oh, the clever things that this film does, but do they? Because early on in the film, it is discovered that they do, in fact, wear underwear in a very bizarre scene where doesn't I can't remember the characters. One of them gets knocked out and
He's
like
shocked by a saber
he's
and
shocked by
passes
a
out.
saber. Yeah, so uh, he faints. There's this British character who faints, and then the guy just like looks up his kilt, I think,
Yeah,
and you're like, I mean, that isn't by the point that you're in this film, you're basically watching a guy who's wearing brown face, and you're like, okay, this is not the most weirdest thing that could happen in this film. It's very, very weird and obviously of its time. But
Hmm.
anyway, it's discovered that the British, oh, no, the Foot and Mouth Brigade don't in fact wear any underwear. And of
They
course, the
do, in
fact
fact. They
they,
do.
they
They
do wear
do.
underwear because, of course, Kenneth Williams said that it's actually terrible just watching these guys in battle running around when everything's flowing out in the heat of battle. It's terrifying to watch these people. This film is basically a checkbox of every bad stereotype of
Absolutely, it is. What I think is interesting about this film, though, is, and especially paired with Starship Troopers, is some of those themes are explored in really interesting ways. So propaganda plays a huge role in this film, and
yes,
as you say, so they're known as the devils in skirts, the foot
yes,
and mouth brigade, and like you say, people are afraid to fight against them. It's hard for Kenneth Williams' character to like get a revolution going because people are scared that these guys are so brave that they will fight in kilts without wearing underwear. You know, as silly as that is, that's the nature of it. The
yes. That
propaganda
is the
has
nature. He
worked.
has to convince people, and a big part of that is
Yeah.
Lady Rough Diamond Joan Sims
Yes.
takes a photo during a parade when all of the army has to basically lift up their kilts, and the photo is taken, and it's revealed they're all wearing underwear,
Yeah.
and that photo is the MacGuffin or is
Mhm.
the plot device that then triggers the rest of the film because she attempts to trade. Again, this is insane to say this. She attempts to trade the photo of the British men wearing underwear for sex between herself and Kenneth Williams, a very camp man,
Mhm. Who she's
and
taken a liking to since she
who
first
she's taken
saw
a
him, right?
liking to. And again, saying this all out loud just makes me realize how awful it is. And of course,
Yeah.
Kenneth and the running joke is that the running joke in most of these films is that Joan Sims is an unattractive lady that men do not want to have sex with, and that is why Kenneth Williams does not want to, and as Sid James also doesn't really want doesn't really want anything to do with Lady Rough Diamond, poor Joan Sims.
Mhm.
Which, considering that Joan Sims was 41, she was my age in this film,
Right.
and Sid James is 55 and has a head that looks like someone's pebble dashed a bowling ball, and yet he's the guy that these women just flock to constantly.
Yeah,
Just
he's a
he
sex
he
symbol
basically
in this
just yes
universe.
because Joan Sims goes across to the is it the Kazi? I want to say the Kazi.
Yes,
Yeah, of course, it's called the Kazi.
it is. Yeah, I mean that
Kenneth
and
Williams
this.
is called the
Yeah,
Kazi. Yeah, of course. Then the Kazi's harem have to basically sleep with Sid James.
yeah.
All 50 of his harem, because of
Which is,
course.
and it's all of like everything in the movie. It's all played for laughs.
Oh
There's
yeah,
no
everything
problematic
is
within
played.
the movie itself. No
Yes,
one has a problem with
within the
anything.
movie,
No,
this is
nothing is an
all fine.
issue.
No one has any problems in the movie. This is all just played as normal. It
Yeah.
is all just played
And
as
it's
for
you know,
laughs.
you know, not to. So it is problematic and it is bad and in many ways, in many ways. To be generous to the film, there are some really interesting ideas, like because everybody is up for grabs in terms of targets of
Yes.
the sort of satire and stuff. So there's a lot of stuff at everybody's expense, including the British and
Oh
the
yes.
the colonial
And
aspect of British rule. So
that's how
all of
you
that
get
is
away with this
also
film.
lampooned and sort of sent
Yeah.
up. And it's quite clear that there's an enormous amount of incompetence in terms of the British rulership, in terms of the British
Yes.
military. The very fact that the entire plot MacGuffin is built on these guys are supposed to be this really strong, awesome regiment, but
Mm.
then actually they're rubbish. They're poorly trained. Like the guy who faints because he's seen
A
the
sword.
saber,
Just the
yeah,
saber. Just
and
they're
he's
all
on the
just
front
either
lines
incompetent or
of the Khyber Pass, the most important like pass
yes.
in the thing. They live in a tiny little hut, and that's
Yes.
where the defense takes place.
I think we've had to explain how problematic the film is, but in doing so, we might have forgotten this is basically a kind of gag a minute kind of
It
deal.
is.
What
It's
they're doing.
not
The reason
non-stop.
why this is
Whether or not those
popular is
gags are funny It's a
Yes,
different question, but it does go for a gag
it
literally
goes for a
every
gag.
second.
There's a few of them that I think,
There's
okay,
a couple of
that's pretty
chuckles, I
good.
will
There's a couple of
admit, to a
chuckles.
couple of
There's
chuckles, yeah.
especially right at the end, which we'll get to. But it has a very famous scene at the end. We'll get to that where we're going after we've done all the content warning, which seems to be like the 30-minute content warning of this film.
For a 2 minute
Um,
conversation about it.
yeah, and it's that everyone is being sent off. That's how the Carry On films worked, and that's why the Carry On films aren't consigned to like the dustbin of history that a lot of the other content from this era ended up going into. Because
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
that's
I
why
think
these things are. I mean, for
it's
the American
interesting. It's
audience
an
and for the
interesting.
other non-UK audience out there, these a lot of the Carry On films are shown at Christmas every year in the UK on terrestrial TV. So these aren't things like those episodes of Always Sunny in Philadelphia that got taken off air because they're wearing blackface in them.
They
Um,
surely are not still showing them
they're
on
not on
terrestrial
those one.
TV.
I'm pretty sure
They're
Carry On Up the Khyber
still
was on last
showing like they
Christmas.
would put this film on terrestrial
I'm
TV,
I'm pretty sure I
and
saw
that
this
does
film
surprise
either
me.
last Christmas, and the fact that it's survived the ban on blackface is very bizarre. I think it's just one of those ones that slipped under the radar because who cares at this point in the
I mean,
UK? Who's going to
yeah,
watch
I
this
think
film?
it's
Um,
fascinating. Did you know that in 1999, this film was voted 99th in the British Film
I
Institute's top
I did.
100 British films,
Yes, I
which is
think I looked that
astonishing.
weirdly. That was one of the facts. And at 1999, I mean, if it's one of yeah, this film, to be fair, is one of the probably top three or top five best Carry On
Yeah, I
films.
think it's most well like favorably remembered in
Yes,
terms of its
it's. I
comedy.
think it's between this Carry On Camping for different reasons, and that's a
Carry
different
on
nest of.
Cleo, maybe Cleo Patra.
And there's Carry On Screaming, which is another, and then Carry On Don't Lose Your Head. Those kind of five films are the most common examples of the Carry On film. They're most popular ones, and there's obviously they made 30 films. There's a lot of trash in there. Um, and they go for like 88 minutes, I think this film was.
Yeah, it's
They're
quite
very
short,
quick, they're very short, they have very sudden
mercifully.
endings. They just they're trying to get all the gags out, all the sight gags out, all of these clever little puns out. Um, and yeah, so anyway, in the film, the major plot point, going back to where we were a few minutes ago, is that the Afghans are trying to revolt, or the Indians and Afghans trying to revolt, and they are eventually to retrieve this photo, the photo of the men wearing their underwear. A crack group of British commandos are
Yeah,
assembled,
best of the best.
basically the best of the British, which happen to also include the most incompetent people possible that they've found.
Yeah,
There's what's his name? Roy Castle playing a sergeant,
right.
corporal, someone or other, probably the on the ground leader of the forces, agrees to launch this mission to the Qazi's palace
Hmm.
to get the photo, and he takes with him a variety of disreputable members of society, including the guy that faints, the drill sergeant. They pick up some preacher because I think there's a preacher or missionary who
Yeah,
knows the way. Um, and typically, and another theme of these films is several of the characters would just be what you would describe today as sex addicts, like proper sex addicts, like as they would
yeah, they
exist
are.
today. People who are just literally obsessed, like a cartoon caricature of a person who sees a scantily clad lady and you can see their eyes just bulge
Yeah,
out. If this was an animated film, their eyes would just be bulging out, they'd be panting. But yeah, he gets a missionary who just seems to be only concerned with having sex.
hmm
And they get this team and they infiltrate the Qazi's palace and end up obviously, how do British people pretend to be Indian and Pakistani people? Fake beards and boot polish over the
Yep,
face.
yep.
All of them just go straight up with it. And yeah, you get to a bizarre scene where Roy Castle and these characters are playing they're English actors playing Scottish soldiers dressed up as Afghani generals
Mhm.
who are dressed up as belly dancers to
Yes, that's right.
perform in front of the Khyber. So there's like a four layers of dressing up. At that point I did think of, is it Tropic Thunder?
Sure. Yeah.
You got to do. I'm just in a dude playing a dude. That it's that kind of scene in Tropic Thunder,
Yeah.
and that I think that's how this film has probably dodged the censorship in the same
I
way
mean,
that
it's pure.
Tropic
It is
Thunder.
very silly.
It is
And it
very very
is
silly.
on the surface extremely it is. It has no pretensions to being
No,
serious or anything
no,
in any way whatsoever. And I think actually that also is probably why it gets away with being
absolutely.
potentially as critical as it is of some elements of British society at the
Yes,
time.
yeah. You know, the obvious. I mean, I think Kenneth Williams. I think he's kind of wearing brown face. It's difficult to tell
If
because of the
so, is
saturation.
probably the least.
I think
It's
it
probably
just
got the
looks like
least
he's got a bit
makeup
of a
on.
tan. He's
Yeah,
certainly got the least makeup of anyone. And I don't know whether that's because he said, look, this isn't, I'm not going to do it that much.
I wouldn't have thought
Or,
so. I mean, given that his like second in command is fully
yeah,
in
his second
makeup.
in command is fully back. Or they probably just thought, we need him to look like Kenneth
I
Williams.
think that would be more
I
likely.
think
Yeah,
there's probably someone just
yeah.
said, look, we can make you up, but then you won't look like because you were a draw
Yeah, I
as
think they
Kenneth
probably
Williams.
would
We
just
want to make it clear.
your face
Yeah,
is
so
part of the sailing
and
of the
again,
picture.
various extras. Of course, all the extras, the Indian and Afghanistan extras have various level of blacking up. Some of them didn't seem to bother at all. There's obviously the makeup has just gone. No, you need it. No, you can probably get away. No, you
Yeah,
need it.
very inconsistent. Very
It's
yeah.
very it's so silly. It's one of those things where you can't at one point you can't really get that upset about it, and at the other point you really don't want children to be looking at this and
Yeah, I, mean,
thinking,
I
yeah,
wouldn't
this is
want
funny.
to. I wouldn't want to put it in front of anybody and
No,
say, "Watch this." And I
no,
think it's absolutely, personally, I think it's absolutely right to and acceptable to get upset about it and to look back and sort of say, this shouldn't have been acceptable. However, that doesn't, I don't think, rule out everything that there are other things it did that were funny or successful in what it was trying to do. So those are unacceptable elements. I don't think don't necessarily damn the entire project, if
yes,
that makes sense.
and weirdly, and again, this is just me talking. It was the sexism to me that was the part where I was like, oh, that's not good. That's
Because I think
when a
yeah,
lot of it is directed at Jones. I mean, a lot of it is directed at women because of the Sid James character and his general
yeah. I mean,
portrayal
there's
in
very much
this.
a sense of women as
There is,
objects.
it is very, yeah. Oh
Yeah,
yes. I mean, women are, you've got the harem of 50 wives
sure. Yeah,
in one respect, and then in the other respect, you've got Sid James and his one wife who he doesn't really like, and a lot of the barbs that are sent her way, you're like, oh, that's not you, that's not
yeah. A
good.
lot of misogynistic or fat
There's a
phobic
lot
or all
of
sorts of stuff.
yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. It's oh yeah, I mean, it's just a laundry list of everything,
it is. Yeah.
everything that we've moved past.
Not to get into the politics of it too, but the content warning in this kind of context where we're saying, listen, we're looking at this because we are exploring its relevance, we're exploring its influence, we're exploring
Yes,
this element of it, but we are doing so whilst also accepting and acknowledging these
absolutely.
other problematic, outdated elements that we
Of
don't
the film.
condone or support, and I think that's the
Yes.
nature of it. But
Yeah.
I think the point there's a scene you were going to, I think, allude to earlier towards the end of the movie that is actually great comedy.
Yeah. Weirdly, in all of this, and this is probably why it's thought of as so well, is that right at the end of the film, the all of the I mean, it's 88 minutes, so it's not like it's got a massive amount of subplots and things like that. The Indian Afghanistan army attacks this British compound, and all of the a large portion of the British characters are just having dinner inside it and resolving to just ignore what is going on outside, while there is this giant battle being fought. And the battle being fought outside is like they've there must have been a decent amount of budget put into it, because there's
Cannons
like
and
a
everything.
compound wall, there's cannons, there's like they start the wall explodes apart, they
Yeah,
blow the doors off.
yeah.
There's like hundreds of extras in here, all dressed up, and there's hundreds of guys in kilts and Scottish, and they're all like fighting each other. So it's quite a big budget production for its time, and for how silly the film is. There's a big fight going on outside, while inside there is this sustained, I think it's 10 or so minutes of Sid James and all of the other characters trying to have dinner while there's an orchestra playing and there's like cannons going into it. And throughout the 10 minutes, like everything starts to fall apart. That the orchestra explodes at one point. This is full British slapstick. It's full
Yeah.
like Monty Python style, absolute nonsense. Like the ceiling comes down at one point. There's a I don't know what you describe him, like a illusionist guy who helps them escape from the Kazi's palace, and his head gets served up, and of course the head, because it's not as violent as it sounds, the head is still talking because he's still cracking jokes, he's still tracking one-liners.
Yeah.
And Sid James goes, well, I ordered the suckling pig, and puts the
Quite
puts
surreal moment.
it's
Yeah.
completely surreal. Yeah, it's complete surreal, insane comedy, and it just continually goes on and on and on, as everything is like the wine bottles are exploding in people's hands, and everyone apart from this missionary guy is playing it completely deadpan, playing it
Yeah.
completely straight. And in the corner, there's this one guy, the missionary, who's just having a nervous breakdown, because he's reacting to all of this stuff that's going on. And that's a very famous scene. It's a very popular scene.
Yeah.
And it's probably the most popular one of the most iconic scenes from
Yeah.
the Carry On franchise, because it's effectively standing up the old English British values of stiff upper
Exactly.
lip and let's ignore what's going on, even
Yeah.
though everything's falling apart. And that scene works very well, or at least it would do if Roy Castle's character had been consistently oblivious to the stuff that was going on beforehand. And then because Roy Castle's character kind of,
I think, yeah, I mean, it's the best bit of satire in the movie, I think, because exactly
yes,
like you say, it is. So I think the line, or someone's sort of line, is roughly, we're British, we'll do absolutely nothing and continue as if everything will be absolutely fine. And then that
yes,
is what they do, even though there is clear evidence as things explode, as
yes,
dust and debris gets into the soup. Like they just continue to eat the meal, even though all of this stuff is very clearly not fine. And the idea being that this is, whether this is the British Empire or the British government or the British people, just continuing as if everything is fine
absolutely,
does not
continuing,
make it fine.
keep calm and carry on.
Yes.
That's the thing. And then eventually they go out to see what the noise is outside, and Sid James and a couple of his aides go out, and they see this giant fight is going on, and Sid James is just like in his dressing gown drinking brandy. And like Castle's like, well, it looks like there's a fight, and he gets like a pistol out, and it's like, do you mind if I just go and
Yeah.
join in? It's like, yeah, I'll just go. I've got a pistol here. Do you mind if I just go as well and join him? And they're like, they go and fight, and the fight continues, and then they come back and they're like, oh, it looks like we're losing. There's nothing for it. And of course, the final part of the film, they draw the army back. There's no casualties, no one on the ground,
Yeah.
no sign of any injury at all. I think Roy Castle has a little smear of
Yeah, he
blood on his
does, yeah.
face. I think that's the only kind of injury that is ever exhibited, or only kind of drawing of blood that's ever exhibited, even though you've just seen a guy with his head cut off talking to you on a plate. That's the only little bit of potential violence that you're allowed, because obviously, so the time is censors. You gotta cut down on that kind of thing. And they draw the lines back, and then they order the army to lift up their kilts, presumably showing a bunch of pit dicks to the Afghans, and it just frightens them, and they all of the combined Indian, Pakistani, Afghanistani forces. I don't actually know what, because it kind of moves between Indian and Pakistan.
Yeah, and I think
I think
it
it's a
doesn't care.
blend.
It is
Yes,
talking about revolution as a
yes, is revolution
purely
is a metaphor
abstract.
for the whole thing.
Yeah.
I mean, granted, we're talking about a bunch of guys pretending to be Scottish Highlanders.
Sure.
And we're also talking about, this is why I'm keep talking about Indian Pakistani. I don't really know what they are supposed to be, in the same way I don't know what the British contingent is supposed to be either. But the rebel forces just flee. Obviously, Kenneth Williams has an amazing. He's so good at physically doing the facial kind of expressions, of just like looking at this arrangement of guys showing their tackle, and he's like, but obviously double meaning, because of course it's Kenneth Williams,
Right.
and you're like, and then of course those two flee as well, and then it just ends, and then no, it ends with a
This is the British flag, isn't it?
it's a British flag with a logo over it. So it cuts to a Union Jack that's got a slogan, "I'm backing Britain."
That's right.
And at the time that this was made, that was a briefly run patriotic slogan for the British workforce, because the UK was in a I think it was in a recession, or it had some kind of devastating economic problem. And there was a slogan, "I'm backing Britain," and it was down to, I think it was a part of a group of workers who decided to work unpaid, work an extra like half-hour unpaid work, so that they could get more work done and hopefully help Britain out of the economic malaise it was at that time.
Mm.
The reason why it was short-lived is because, of course, unions got involved and said, "Hold on, now you're telling people, or at least commanding, or at least like alluding to the fact that people should be working unpaid to help out. Why don't you just pay them to do the work?" And the movement kind of fell apart.
Right.
But bear in mind that this is a film when was it made?
It was
In
68.
1968, and it is alluding to a British commander partying while absolute hell breaks loose
Sure.
outside,
Yeah.
while also producing vain, stupid slogans about how you should all do your bit. And you're like, was this made in 2020? And you're like, oh no, it's not. This is British society. This is how it's always been.
Sure.
This is why it's so popular. It's sending up everything, because British society does go through this point again, to bring politics into it. If you aren't aware what I'm alluding to there, it's Boris Johnson having parties in Downing Street during the pandemic, while simultaneously coming up with bizarre patriotic catchphrases and trying to muster this spirit of Britain to kind of help people out, although it's not really helping, and it's not really been well thought out. And yeah, I mean, we've, somehow, some way we get through it all, kind of. And
Is that
is
why? Is this the reason that you wanted to explore the movie? What brought
no, I mean, no,
this film
to be honest with
mind?
you, I didn't even get that analogy until I just rewatched it ready for this. The reason I wanted to explore this movie is this kind of genre is British humor,
Right.
it's a large chunk of British humor from 50s, 60s, 70s. Anyone who has read a 80s role-playing game book will see, when it goes for humor, it goes for this style of humor. It goes for funny names, it goes for puns, there's slapstick, there's all of this stuff, and occasionally there's a little bit of problematic behavior, with obviously portrayals of different nationalities,
Sure.
and women as well.
Yeah.
Certainly in the 80s, for role playing, that was a big issue. That if you go back and read various role playing articles, particularly when they talk about foreign lands, you will get these kind of things in it. And because that is the zeitgeist of the time, we're not saying this is okay. We're not like condoning this film. We're saying, if you were born at that time, these are films that would have been in the cinema, one a year at least. If it wasn't two a year, if it wasn't three a year, you would have this this would be your background
Well, this
information.
was a powerhouse of British
Absolutely.
cinema, right? This
Yes.
was very popular for a time. Even, through the 90s, it was still they were still in the cultural sort of
Yeah. I
zeitgeist.
mean,
Even if they weren't quite, they weren't current, but they were still
no.
around. They weren't being made, but they were still being shown.
No, I
I think
remember
you're
watching
totally right.
these. I mean, I remember watching Carry On films as a kid growing up
Yeah, they were
because
on TV.
they still are on TV.
Right.
Every Christmas, they pop out the whole Carry On series on terrestrial TV in the UK. It's just that's just what it's that's just what it is.
Yeah.
Even with
Yeah.
all of these issues and problematic elements, because this is what it is. There is a large portion of the audience that grew up
Yeah.
watching this. It's not like a conscious decision was made by people to do this. This is the kind of media that people are consuming, and that media has led to this other issue down the road where the next generation starts to pop in these puns. And I mean, I'm brought to mind of White Dwarf 100 and its article, very controversial article on, I believe there was like a role-playing game set in colonial Africa,
Right.
something like that, and it is very problematic. It has all the puns and it has all of the caricatures of, I believe, Indians. I'm not entirely sure. But that's why these things exist. It's not that the designers were specifically racist. It's because they have been given a unfiltered diet of this kind of humor, as this is the zeitgeist, and they have done what monkey see, monkey do.
Sure.
They've written that up. They've thought, I need a comedy game. I'm just going to do a light-hearted comedy game in Africa. Didn't think about it, chucked it off, and that's what. And now
Hmm.
we're looking back on this in 2025 and going, oh, that's a
Yeah.
bit wrong. But
Yeah.
of
I just
course, it's society. This is
Yeah.
this is we are
I
we are
think that's a very
gradually.
fair shout, and I think you're right. It permeated culture at the time. I was
Mm,
just double checking that White Dwarf 100. So this is the Hanging Gardens of Bab Elon, which was a
yes.
Woofer adventure, but it
Mm,
it features the pygmies of Warhammer who were
yeah, that's
briefly
it.
around, which a regrettable addition to
Yes.
the Warhammer canon. Whether or not there is potential to explore a faction who are drawing on African heritage and history and culture and would make sense in the Warhammer world. There's definitely something to explore there. The way in which it was done and represented in that
Yes.
particular story,
Yeah.
in that
It's
particular range,
it.
is problematic.
You can see that I don't. You wouldn't look at this, but I don't. I genuinely don't think that the writer of that article had a mean bone in their body. Although I don't know, it's not presented in the mean bone, but it is a
It's of
presentation
of
of
this carry on
of the
style of
time.
comedy.
Yeah,
I think you're
exactly.
totally
It's
right.
of the style of
Yeah.
comedy, and even things that aren't necessarily problematic. Of course, even early Rogue Trader doesn't is actually quite progressive. I would say that
Yeah, in many
the
ways.
40k universe, especially under John Blanche, is incredibly progressive for its time. I mean, with occasional John Blanche was never about like drawing cheesecake women characters as was Boris Vallejo or something like that. Blanche was always like, no, I'm going to draw an Amazon and she's going to be cool. She's going to have a
Yeah,
shield and an axe, and
as
she's going
much
to
a
be really
warrior as
cool.
any
And
man of that
that is
setting.
the art director of Games Workshop at that time, who just went, no, this is the direction we're going to take. And there's it's surprisingly progressive in terms of, let's not, because I mean, in the 80s, when you talk about role playing in the 80s, there were a lot of miniatures which are basically just topless women. If
Yeah,
you go for Ral Partha and stuff like that, and stuff from the old guard, drawing what they know or sculpting what they know. And in actual fact, 40k has taken out those elements, pushed them forward,
yeah,
and we've now have Sisters of Battle, and we've now
sure.
have various more. And obviously, there's going to be pushback on the internet. There
Yeah,
always is. But that's the kind of comedy elements that have seeped into the British game. I mean, the slapstick humor and the funny names
yeah,
are all in Rogue Traeger, especially any orc characters of
yes.
that time. or groups. It's
The
all
the
over
funny
that.
name. I mean, we mentioned that Kenneth Williams is playing the Kazi, and that just reminds me of the name of the dwarven language in Warhammer Fantasy, which is
Yeah.
Kazalid or Kazi Lid,
Mm.
as in the toilet seat. And that is it is the same root of that comedy of it's funny to talk
Yeah.
about a Kazi or a toilet and to make that into for it to be a silly fantasy name and
Yeah.
then to be played totally straight, even though it's this absurd silly thing. That
Yes.
type of comedy exists throughout the 80s, certainly throughout a lot of the 80s, like Games Workshop books and worlds. There's loads and loads of that kind of just puns and silly names and funny stuff like that. Silly, absurd ideas played totally straight to then, create a bit of
Yes.
comedy. So I
Yeah.
think it is a fun shout. So I'd never seen Carry On Up the Khyber
Oh,
before.
really?
Yeah,
So this was
I
the first time for you?
studiously avoided Carry On films my entire life. It just what because it just didn't appeal to me. It was around, but it just was
Mm.
never something that I fancied. Whether that was because it seemed old when I was younger, or whether it was because I just didn't get on with the comedy, who knows?
I don't.
But
I
until,
think.
until watching
Yeah.
this, I'd never watched one in its entirety. And although all of the problematic elements that we've discussed absolutely are there and absolutely are problematic, I was surprised to see that there were also some clever jokes and some well constructed
Oh,
sequences
yeah. There's.
and some pretty good satire in
Oh, yeah.
places.
That's why I got to the end of the film and I was like, wow, this if you remade this film, it could have literally come out a couple of years ago
In
because of
certain
the ending
themes, certain
sequence. In
aspects of
certain
it. Yeah.
sequence, yes. I mean, if you remade the film, you'd have to significantly alter it. But the ending sequence of Keep Calm and Carry On
Yes.
is the most famous part of it, and that is the part where you think, okay, that is pretty much almost a
Successive
timeless.
British governments
Yes, almost a
are
timeless,
displayed in that
yeah,
scene.
a timeless parody of the British culture from, even though this was, made in 1968, it was probably parodying stuff from decades
Mm.
prior. In fact, parodying stuff from hundreds of years prior. It's, it is that kind of whole thing that is pervasive through
Yeah.
the kind of class-based comedy of British comedy that's gone all the way through.
Yeah.
And if you're, everyone has been ultimately influenced by it in some way, and you can see it all over the place.
Dave, I'm conscious that we have been talking for a fair bit now, and we've done everything we possibly could to make it to get the video removed from the internet and stricken from the record. But is there anything else that you would want to say as a final thought
Yes,
about?
I mean, obviously, this film does have a big problem, and that's because um, obviously when the Afghanis attack the Khyber Pass and the brave British defenders are trying to defend it with the Bren gun and they're turning the crank of this machine gun and music comes out and it turns out that they've booby trapped it and it's a vinyl record. But of course, this film was set in 1895. Vinyl records didn't come out till the 50s. So
So there's a loophole, a plot hole.
massive plot hole, massive flaw in this.
Well,
Probably the biggest flaw in this film is
sure,
that.
that undermines everything that came before it. That's a real shame.
Absolutely. That's the problem with this film is the vinyl record.
Well, Dave, it has been an absolute joy to chat with you about a couple of movies. So thank you so much for joining me on the film club.
My
And I,
pleasure.
I will include all of your socials in the description down below. Your Olden Demon online, right?
Yes, I do. I do that, or at least I did until I got cancelled after I did this. Who knows how it's going to go now? Let's be honest. Who knows? I'd love to come back if I'm not persona non grata on the internet after this one.
Well, thank you, Dave. Thanks for joining us. And thank everybody at home for being part of our conversation in the latest Warhammer Film Club.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you again for joining me and my wonderful guest Dave Chilvers from Olden Demon. If you would like to support the show, you can join patreon.com/Jordan Sorcery, where you'll get early access and exclusive content, including a research article about the links between Starship Troopers and Warhammer history. Tune in next time as Wib from Snipe Wib joins me to talk Michael Moorcock's The Final Programme and The Thing.